Samsung, proud sponsor of TechBusters.
Tom Kyte, thank you for joining us on CNBC Africa and TechBusters. Big data is the big buzzword in today's world, and all the companies are using it. How important is big data in today's world?
It's pretty large and growing. Big data was impossible to do 10, 12, 15 years ago because a terabyte of disk production quality in the late 90s was close to $1 million US dollars, and now I've got a terabyte in my backpack that's probably faster and more available than the stuff from 15 years ago. So we have the ability to accumulate all this data, and we've got the CPU processing capabilities to process through it, and now everybody's looking for that needle in the haystack. Every time we fly on an airplane, the new Dreamliner, or the Boeing plane, generates a half a terabyte of information, and they're saving that stuff up, analyzing it, looking through it, trying to figure out how to make the plane fly better and be more fuel efficient and do things like that.
So when you look at big data, and you're looking at the different applications that you mentioned now, I know that we can use big data in a positive way to reverse CO2 emissions, or you look at how the planet is degrading. Can we use big data to reverse the negatives that we're doing to planet Earth?
I think it definitely has the potential to do that, because we can now take information at a level of detail that we've never been able to track it before, because we simply didn't have the computing resources. And we can see very clearly how ice caps are shrinking and water is rising, and we can measure these things at a level of detail we've never been able to. On the other hand, in the wrong hands, big data could be a really bad thing. People accumulating a lot of information on my shopping patterns and where I'm driving, because we have smart tags and things in our car as we pass through toll booths and whatnot. So there could be a bad side to it as well.
Privacy is a big issue. How do you keep your privacy intact? Because we're sharing everything today. Does the privacy bother you about big data?
Actually, I'm more private today than I was, say, 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Because I'm just changing my mind on that myself, because I see it's all being aggregated, accumulated, and it never ever goes away. The very first internet Usenet post that I posted in October 1994 is still out there. Right? Everything I've ever said about Oracle, everything I've ever said in a disparaging fashion about our competition is out there. And anybody could accumulate all that stuff, put it all together. I do have a very big electronic trail. I travel a lot, so I use credit cards a lot. I go around the world. My cell phone is registering all over the place. So that, even if you try to be private, I don't think you can truly be private anymore today unless you live on top of a mountain and never communicate with anyone.
It must be difficult to predict where the future is going to be, but where do you see it going in 5 years' time?
Oh, that is so hard, because if you just go back 10 years ago, 10 years ago we weren't all carrying around smartphones and constantly heads down connected, and when I traveled you didn't have wireless networks everywhere. So I can only dream of where we'll be in 5 or 10 years. I carry 3 pieces of electronics with me. I'm hoping maybe I'll only carry 1 in the future, because I have to carry a computer. I carry a tablet so I can read, and I carry a smartphone so that I can stay in touch and communicate with people. So I'd like to see that get down to 1 device, and maybe even be something that I'm just wearing, and it's just part of what we are. But from a data processing perspective and everything else like that, I just see the amount and volume of data that will be going through increasing and growing. And don't forget, nothing ever gets deleted, right? My first Usenet post is out there, as is the first expense report that I ever filed with Oracle. It's still in a database somewhere, right? And we're just accumulating all this information. In the field of medicine, this is huge. A doctor being able to look at a patient, having the genome information, DNA, and also the patient histories of millions of other people and the treatments that were applied to them and what worked and what didn't work, and trying to filter through that and figure out what will probably work. On that part, it's not scary. That's very hopeful.
Yes.
You know, but there are the scary parts as well. You know, people misusing that information, looking for the needle in the haystack about you to use against you, and you know.